Lancelot Link, secret chimp. Stands for justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, you gotta come through. Everybody at A.P.E is counting on you. It's pretty mighty heavy, an agent and a friend that she'll stick by your side right to the end. Darwin is the leader on the side of good. Fight Trump agents like a good ape should. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do? You gotta stop the Chump, the job is up to you.
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon, a happy, mouth-tingling, fruity, fun idea. One of the cornerstone contributions to Nickelodeon's transition from a lost leader channel with a bad schoolyard reputation to the most watched cable channel around was the rise of Nick at Night in 1985. An enticing treat for the baby boomer parents who actually bought the cable subscriptions, Nick at Night offered a curated, classic television experience that you couldn't get anywhere else. I mean, you could watch reruns just about anywhere, but those same reruns being on Nick at Night was a way of saying that these shows you grew up with were special. And dang it, Mom and Dad, you had great taste in television. An early tactic of the Jerry Laybourne era was to cross-promote Nick at Night by having shows that aired both there and on daytime Nickelodeon. Nick at Night was technically a separate channel from Nickelodeon, and when it began, not every cable provider carried it, sometimes going off the air during the late evening, early morning hours, or sometimes switching to something unrelated. These cross-promotional shows offered a taste to adult consumers of what they could have if they called up their provider and demanded Nick at Night. With every passing year, that became less and less of an issue, and by 1988, Nick at Night was reaching 32 million households. But this practice of sharing shows continued. It was pretty much tradition at this point. So what was going to follow in the footsteps of Dennis the Menace and the Monkees? What was going to be the next big crossover hit of 1988? Well, it wasn't exactly a hit, but it did air on Nickelodeon, so now I'm contractually obligated to talk about it. This is Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp.
Name's Link. Lance Link.
Introducing Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. He's an ape who leads a life of danger.
Step on it, Lancelot!
An expert in disguise, a master in the art of weapons. He's licensed to stop evil and a whiz in the kitchen.
Is everybody happy?
Hero, lover, rock and roller, all-around good ape.
That's true.
Oh, Lancelot!
Catch him Saturdays at 12:30, 11:30 Central, only on Nick at Night.
In his not-so-secret lair, Baron Von Butcher and his evil organization, the Criminal Headquarters for Underworld Master Plan, or C.H.U.M.P, plot to take over the world one piece at a time. Oh, nothing too unreasonable. A kidnapped diplomat here, a bit of smuggled microfilm there, you know, baby steps to world domination. Opposing C.H.U.M.P is the Agency to Prevent Evil, or A.P.E, and their head agent, the vaguely Humphrey Bogart-sounding Lancelot Link.
There's only one other place they can try to grab you, Your Majesty ship.
Where's that?
Simple. Out there in the operating room.
After getting orders from his superior Darwin, Lance heads out with his lovely assistant, Mata Hari, puts on a disguise, and wades into C.H.U.M.P territory to try and put a stop to their evil ways. This may involve things like challenging Baron Von Butcher's chauffeur, Credo, to a race for his country's honor, or perhaps finding an antidote for mad scientist Dr. Strangemind's special gas that mentally reverts you back to being a baby. Or how about that time the Baron was remotely detonating US missiles from a device on the beach? That hot dog vendor disguise will really come in handy with this one.
As the two chumps ate their hot dogs, Lance desperately looked for a clue.
What are you doing there, you nosy vendor? Get away! Get out! Scram!
Well, the hot dog trick was a flop.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you found a clue?
No, but I made a buck.
Oh!
Some of the tricks up Lance's sleeve includes a special gun that'll either slow you down or speed you up. Or rather, slow down or speed up the footage.
Take this. Pow!
Very strange mind, she's getting away.
And then there's always the Evolution Revolution, a bubblegum pop band with Lance disguised as their lead singer. The band isn't just for kicks, it's a means for A.P.E to send coded messages between agents. But still, no reason we can't jam while we're here.
When you're sitting home late on a Saturday night, you ask me to come over and you turn out your light. Oh, Caesar, I know you're leading me around on the line. I'm not gonna take it this time.
Chimp has a number of evil agents on their side, like the Duchess, a megalomaniacal millionaire, and a Middle Eastern baddie named Alia Assassin, and oh look, a couple of classic yellow peril villain archetypes, Dragon Woman and Wang Fu, here because disparaging images of Oriental crime were still in fashion in the 1970s. Yes, it still counts as yellowface if the makeup is on a chimpanzee. I wonder what these two are up to.
Gesundheit. Our plan seems to be working.
Soon everyone sneeze brains out.
Achoo! Ouch! Achoo!
The nation was caught in the grip of a new epidemic, the dreaded Hong Kong sneeze.
Very fortunate. It is Hong Kong sneeze you have. Huh. Yes, for we have only cure for it.
Oh boy, this just got real. I wonder why so many baby boomers easily bought into Trump's conspiracy theories that COVID was manufactured by the Chinese. It's like they picked up on that narrative when they were young. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp originally premiered on ABC on September 12, 1970, airing 17 episodes on Saturday mornings until January of 1971. All but one of the episodes consisted of 2 10-minute stories, with a double-length story for the first episode. Between each of these stories would be a music video starring the Evolution Revolution and Chimpies, rapid-fire sight gags that range from in-camera effects to, look, that chimpanzee is wearing scuba diving flippers.
Chimpies!
Unlike the syndicated version that wound up on Nickelodeon, however, the original broadcast of Lancelot Link had hour-long episodes, with these secret agent stories, music videos, and Chimpy segments interspersed with Looney Tunes shorts. Lancelot Link effectively being a package show for the hijinks of Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner. The cartoons were naturally cut for syndicated reruns, but you can still find Looney Tune directors credited at the end of the half-hour version. We'll touch on this again a little later. Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp was the brainchild of writing duo Stan Burns and Mike Marmer, two men who've largely been forgotten in television history because they didn't make a lot of shows. Lancelot Link is the only creator credit Burns and Marmer have. Instead, Burns and Marmer were reliable presences in writers' rooms all over television's first 40 years, from Broadway Open House in 1950 to Punky Brewster in 1988. Their talents weren't in making shows, but coming onto your show and working with your concepts and throwing a dozen more solid scripts onto the pile. The Milton Berle Show, The Ernie Kovacs Show, the first version of The Tonight Show with Steve Allen, The Smothers Brother Comedy Hour, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Gilligan's Island, F Troop, and especially relevant to Lance Link, 15 episodes of the secret agent comedy Get Smart. But their biggest gig ever came in 1967 with The Carol Burnett Show.
Hi, Mimi.
Look, Mimi, here's Carol.
Why, Carol, you haven't changed a bit. Poor thing.
The duo would write over 100 episodes of The Carol Burnett Show, and even nabbed 2 Emmy nominations in 1968 and 1969. However, after 20 years of being the bridesmaids, Burns and Marmer finally decided to be the brides for once and make their own show. So they left The Carol Burnett Show and approached Alan Sandler, a producer of educational shorts for children.
It all started back in 1968. Stan Burns and Mike Marmer, who were 2 of the top comedy writers at the time, and here they run into my office. We were very good friends. We did a lot of work together and a lot of personal things with families and so forth. And Stan runs into my office unannounced, slams the door and says, "Don't say a word." And I said, "Okay." He said, "No," I said, "Don't say a word." I didn't say a word. And he started talking about this concept that he and Mike had. They wanted to do a theatrical short, a 10-minute short, on a show called The Man from A.P.E, A.P.E. Now, it's all done, and Stan and Mike say, this is so good, why don't we do a TV series on it? Maybe not nighttime, it may not work, but how about Saturday morning network?
This wasn't as strange a pitch as you'd probably think. Trained chimpanzees had been an easy source of entertainment for the past 20 years, from the Ronald Reagan-led Bedtime for Bonzo to Disney's The Monkey's Uncle. For television specifically, there was J. Fred Muggs, who served as a mascot for NBC's Today Show in the 1950s, which boosted the show's ratings and arguably saved it from cancellation. Still, an all-chimpanzee Saturday morning kids show would be a tough sell for the networks. With ABC specifically, Burns, Marmer, and Sandler would have to convince the executive director of children's programming, a position that had only just been created in February of 1970. And the first person to hold that position was Chuck Jones.
In '72, you were Vice President of Children's Programming for ABC TV. Wow.
Well, you dirty guy.
Wow.
You're getting a little too deep here.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm guilty of a lot of sins, but that's one I would just as soon forget.
Yes, indeed, that Chuck Jones. The famed animation director had spent much of the 1960s in transition, first fired from Warner Brothers in 1962 after violating an exclusivity contract. Chuck Jones then moved to MGM and worked on some Tom and Jerry shorts, and directed How the Grinch Stole Christmas. But then MGM's animation division closed its doors in 1970. Meanwhile, there was this pushback against the state of children's television from grassroots organizations such as Action for Children's Television, or A.C.T., founded in 1968 by Peggy Sharon, among others. There was a lot of worry about poor quality programming for kids being used as platforms for commercials, romper rooms selling toys on the air while Captain Kangaroo's airtime was getting cut in half. A mix of direct conversations with the FCC, testifying to Congress, petitions, and picketing was putting pressure on the networks to reduce commercialization and improve the quality of children's programming. As a first step in responding to those political pressures, the major networks began creating separate divisions for children's programming. Originally, kids shows were lumped into the same division as other daytime programming like soap operas and talk shows. Now, children's programming could be focused on by specialized teams. The first network to do that was NBC in January of 1970, followed shortly thereafter by ABC the next month, appointing Chuck Jones, who was vocally on the side of ACT.
And I'd complained so much about children's programming that these guys called my bluff. And they said, come over, and I wasn't the vice president yet. They said, come over and do something.
This is the first sign that broadcasters may begin treating kids as kids. I think Sesame Street was a big help to our cause because it proved that a good program is tremendously popular. It seems that everything is coming together to help us. Ah, yes, Sesame Street. Premiering in November of 1969, Sesame Street quickly proved a very popular, high-quality, mixed-media children's puppet show that was both successfully educational in a way no kids show before had been, and had a huge cast of colorful characters that were easy to market to kids. And it was possibly one of the reasons Chuck Jones got the director of children's programming gig, because in his back pocket was a pitch that could directly compete with Sesame Street. another mixed-media children's puppet show called Curiosity Shop.
With the rollicking refrains of the shop's regular rip-roaring residents. And featuring the fast and flashy footwork of the shop's favorite friends. Also with special solo singing guest, Miss Shirley Jones.
Curiosity Shop did not end up being the Sesame Street killer ABC was hoping for, and Jones left his position with ABC sometime before the end of 1972, but not before greenlighting a handful of shows, including Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp. In fact, you could argue that Lancelot Link was Jones's biggest success during his tenure, as most of the shows he approved for ABC aren't exactly well-remembered classics. Rankin Bass's The Reluctant Dragon and Mr. Toad Show? Mostly forgotten, only had one season. Here Come the Double-Deckers? Slightly more well-remembered in the UK, only filmed 17 of the planned 26 episodes. Will the Real Jerry Lewis Please Sit Down? Who is clamoring for a Jerry Lewis cartoon that doesn't even have the real Jerry Lewis in it doing voices? I hate to say it, but 1970 was a dire year for children's shows. I suppose the lingering question is, did Chuck Jones influence the inclusion of Looney Tunes into the Lancelot Link format? There's not a shred of documentation that says one way or the other, but you can see it, right? Burns, Marmer, and Sandler in Jones's office pitching the program, and Jones is like, okay, this is kind of whatever, but what if we put some of my cartoons into the show? Or maybe it was Burns, Marmer, and Sandler who suggested it as a way to sweeten the pot for the new boss. It is impossible to say, but I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to show business. In 1971, Lancelot Link switched to its half-hour format, and ABC would grab the Roadrunner show from CBS to make up for the missing Looney Tunes shorts. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp was approved with a 7-figure budget, and it shows. I have some major criticisms of this show, but one criticism I can't make is that they didn't put a lot of hard work into it. Up to 30 trained chimpanzees were used, with each character having a designated chimp, very little doubling up with these primate actors. And for those rightfully worried, I found zero evidence of animal abuse in the making of the show. The worst thing that seemed to happen, or at least the worst thing anyone will admit to, was that a few of the chimps ran away, but were later recollected.
And we just dressed up the chimp in an Indian outfit, with the makeup and the Indian coloring, and it took off. Corky
played the Indian.
With the feather and all that, we said, we'll never find him.
It was in the woods.
And a half hour, an hour later, who knows, a hippie, at that time a hippie, a human hippie, comes hand in hand with this Indian. He says...
He said this thing was looking at the window, looking through my window. He had a little...
And he brought him back.
And these are some really well-trained chimpanzees. Lots of scene-specific actions. Running into a wall and doing a roll backwards. Swinging a hammer. Carving a turkey. Cracking an egg into a bowl. I can't imagine the amount of work that had to go into training these 30 chimps. You can't train them all in a consistent way. Just getting them to seem like they're talking required 3 distinct methods based on what specific chimps were capable of. Some of them could open their mouth to match a trainer's gesture, resulting in a pretty decent mimic of talking. Some chimps would flap their jaws wildly on command, but not in any kind of specific controlled way. And then others, including Tongo, the chimp who played Lance Link, wouldn't open their mouths on cue at all, and they were made to flap their lips by giving them peanut butter or chewing gum.
My uncle should have been here an hour ago, Marta.
I haven't seen him anywhere, Lancelot.
Boy, I sure hope he hasn't met with foul play.
Look!
This meant that actually scripting for this show was very, very difficult. And it was up to the 3 voice actors to try and find the right words in the right tempo to match mouth movements. Lance Link, Darwin, Dr. Strangemind, and Ali Assassin were all voiced by Dayton Allen, comedian and children's show performer, having done a lot of voices for Howdy Doody and Terry Tunes.
Get going, Link. You've been tricked. Tricked. Tricked, eh? Credo will pay for that. As soon as I get this road map together. It's easy, a child can do it. Get going! Hurry up! Yeah, a child can fold it. Too bad I'm not a child.
No doggone catfish is gonna defy the law around here. When he chased me out this time, Muskrat, you whacked me in the head there, boy.
All the women roles, including Mata Hari, the Dragon Woman, and the Duchess, were given to Joan Gerber, a soon-to-be very busy voice actress, best known for playing Freddie the Flute on H.R. Pufnstuf and Mrs. Beakley on DuckTales.
Groovy! I have a secret message to be put into song code. The Evolution Revolution will be playing it tonight.
Right here, Mr. McDuck. I'm Bentina Beakley.
Well, Beakley, I'm impressed. Okay, what are your credentials?
I'll work for nothing.
That's my favorite price. You're hired.
Rounding out the cast is Bernie Kopel, voicing Baron von Butcher, Credo, and Wang Fu. He's probably best known today for playing Doc on The Love Boat.
We'll pay a little visit to Lancelot. Bye, pussycat.
Gail, I don't have any more dry shoulders. You're not solving anything by telling all this to me. Tell it to him. You've got a whole jackpot's worth of quarters. Now, why don't you put some of them into a phone?
Oh, and of course the narrator, character actor Malachi Throne, who had guest roles in over 100 shows, from Naked City to Power Rangers SPD, both original Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation, and he even narrated the first trailer for Star Wars.
For over a month, a mysterious motorcycle gang had been hijacking every payroll that couriers were delivering to A.P.E, the crime-fighting agency to prevent evil.
Star Wars, 1 billion years in the making, and it's coming to your galaxy this summer.
To save money, a lot of Lance Link's adventures take place in the same locations. There's a bunch of stories on the beach, a bunch of stories in some light camping areas, and a bunch of reused interior sets. But that's okay because these sets are actually really impressive, scaled to fit the chimp actors and somehow elevated to allow for camera rigging. This is a really well shot show. They even go to the effort for tracking shots, and oh my gosh, is that an interior crane shot? Slow down, Spielberg, you're making a monkey show for kids. Every piece of clothing had to be custom made and fitted, scaled vehicles were made, some of them even drove. And then there's the Evolution Revolution, which is not some gag on modern pop music, but a genuine attempt in creating a successful fictional band that released real-world albums. You know, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, and especially like the Archies, whose 1969 song Sugar Sugar was the #1 single of that year. The Evolution Revolution didn't play joke songs with monkey puns, but trendy pop songs, some of which that were written for real bands. The song Shala Love You was originally written for the Grassroots, who turned it down. An LP was released alongside the TV show in hopes of the Evolution Revolution being the new Archies, with music written and performed by Steve Hoffman, who had just wrapped things up with his small Los Angeles group, the Mystic Astrological Crystal Band. Man, what even were the 60s? As you might guess, the Evolution Revolution did not become the next Archies, but the effort was commendable. That's Lancelot Link in a nutshell. A commendable effort. Because despite all the money and talent and production values on screen, and on the flip side, despite the casual yellow peril racism on display, Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp is surprisingly boring. It's slow-paced, has far fewer jokes than you'd expect. It basically rides or dies based on how funny you find chimpanzees in human clothes to be. And that's because you just can't do a lot with even the most talented, trained chimpanzees. Yes, you can train a chimp to pick up a cream pie and toss it in a general direction. But you can't teach a chimp to do it with comedic timing. It's really hard to do witty, well-timed dialogue when every chimp actor has a different way of moving their mouth. And you can't really do larger physical gags without the risk of hurting the animals. But even taking all that into account, the scripts here feel strangely underdeveloped for something written by two of the most experienced television comedy writers out there. Like, here's a shocker. There's almost no puns in this show. You expect these characters to be all, "Oh, he won't make a monkey out of me," or "That guy is driving me bananas," but it almost never happens. There's a few names that fit the bill, Link, Darwin, Ape. There's an Ed Sullivan character named Ed Simeon, but the dialogue and plots are just totally pun-free. No references to King Kong or Planet of the Apes, no spoof on the monkeys. Virtually all the jokes you'd expect are absent here, and there's nothing there to replace them. Instead, what you end up with is a bunch of very minor get smart scripts, shaved down to 10 minutes and watered down for the kiddies, with the comedic talents of Don Adams and Barbara Feldon replaced with a couple of low-energy chimpanzees. Oh, and you originally had them paired with classic Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons to really drive home how underwhelming it all is. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp doesn't feel like real television. It feels like the fictional TV show that characters might watch in a lighthearted family film, or maybe the stupid bottom-of-the-barrel show you might see in a RoboCop-style satire. Despite all this, it was still the most culturally successful show of the Chuck Jones era of ABC. There was a decent amount of merchandise, some comic books, lunchboxes, Viewmaster cards, the Evolution Revolution LP, the stuff you'd expect. And it had enough of a fan base for at least one fanzine. And 19 years later, it would get a prominent reference in the Tom Hanks film Turner and Hooch.
It was called Lancelot Link Secret Chimp. It was like, like the man from Uncle. It was like, do names have a TV? Oh, wait, it's two-dimensional. You couldn't see it. It was these chimps, and they were supposed to be spies, and they were dressed up in suits and stuff, and they'd wear hats and smoke cigarettes. You missed it. It was good.
Lance Link was a minor show, but it wasn't a forgotten show. So it was a sensible pick for Nick at Night and their goal of bringing nostalgic content to baby boomer audiences. And with it being a children's show, there was a logic in having it on daytime Nickelodeon as well. But in practice, it was barely on the channel. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp aired as a weekend show, 11:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, and only ran on daytime Nick for 6 months, from April 1st to September 11th, 1988. That's enough to earn it a Knacks episode, but it's safe to say its impact on Nickelodeon was pretty minimal. It did run a bit longer on Nick at Night, airing up until February 25th, 1989, and briefly aired on TV Land in 1999. It had a few home video releases, including a complete DVD set in 2012, and that seems to be it for the Lancelot Link legacy. Oh, but don't feel bad for Stan Burns and Mike Marmer. Sure, the one show they created became something of a nostalgic afterthought, but as soon as they were done making it, they went right back to the Carol Burnett Show, and in 1972, they finally won that Emmy. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp feels more like an artifact than a TV show, more in line with My Pet Rock and Lava Lamps as late 60s, early 70s tat. It sat awkwardly on ABC in 1970, it sat awkwardly on Nickelodeon in 1988, and now it sits awkwardly on my DVD shelf in 2021. I would be lying if I said I had a fun time watching it for this project, but as something to research, a slight oddity with a lot of history behind it, it still holds a lot of value. Just, maybe it was past its expiration date by the time Nickelodeon got a hold of it.
Nick, 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 Nick. Nickelodeon. Nick, 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 Nick. Nickelodeon.
Next time, Nickelodeon takes another stab at a talk show, this time with an all-kids cast. I hear New Kids on the Block show up in this one. Today's research shout-out goes to the special features on the Lancelot Link DVD set, which includes interviews with Stan Burns, Mike Marmer, and producer Alan Sandler. Once upon a time, special features used to be good. What happened to you, Blu-ray? If you'd like to support Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to production values, research materials, and tomatoes for my tomato soup. You can also support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, leaving a comment, following me on Twitter, sending a one-time donation through PayPal or Ko-fi, and sharing Knickknacks with all your friends. Thank you all for watching, and Black Lives Matter.